Have you ever wondered what it really takes to build a city underground? To pull billions of dollars of treasure from nearly half a kilometer beneath the surface? Well, we're about to dive in because we're going to explore the engineering, the challenges, and just the incredible scale of one of the most ambitious mining projects out there right now, the Havieron Gold and Copper Mine. And to kick things off, let's just start with a number that gets everyone's attention, right? The plan for Havieron is to pull out over 3.5 million ounces of gold. That is just a staggering amount, and it tells you right away why a project this complex is absolutely worth the effort. But what's really fascinating is how that headline number breaks down. You know, over a 17-year mine life, the plan is to dig up over 50 million tons of ore. And that's not just for the gold, but also for 130,000 tons of copper. These are the hard numbers from the project's feasibility study, kind of the bedrock that this whole massive undertaking is built on. Okay, so with that kind of scale in mind, let's get our bearings. What exactly is the Havieron project? Well, at its core, it's a world-class treasure chest. But here's the catch. It's buried under 420 meters of rock, sand, and ancient sediments. I mean, that's deeper than the Empire State Building is tall. So this isn't some simple open-pit mine. Getting to the goods is a monumental engineering challenge from day one. And it's so important to understand this isn't just happening in the middle of nowhere. This project is on the traditional lands of the Martu people. A really comprehensive land use agreement is in place to make sure there's collaboration on everything from access to protecting cultural heritage to making sure there are direct benefits for the community. It's totally fundamental to how the project operates. All right, so let's get into the blueprint. How in the world do you design a mine to safely and efficiently pull out an ore body that's locked so deep underground? The answer is a really clever method called sublevel open stoping, or SLOS for short. Think of it like building a skyscraper, but in reverse and underground. You carefully carve out these huge rooms. They call them stopes. Then, and this is the key part, before you move to the next room, you fill the one you just finished with a strong cement-like paste. This keeps the whole structure incredibly stable as you work your way through. And this schematic just gives you the perfect big picture view. You can see the main decline, that's the spiral road that corkscrews down into the mine, and the conveyor system that'll bring all the ore back up to the surface. And look how they connect to that massive vertical ore body, the green part, sitting way down deep. This is the underground highway system for the whole operation. So, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? It's the same idea here. You break this huge ore body down into 6 distinct panels, and the mining sequence is meticulously planned out, generally going from the top down and working outwards from that central rock formation. It's a very structured, panel-by-panel approach. Now, if we zoom in even more, this is where the SLOS method is just genius. See, you don't just mine one stope right next to another one. You do it in what's called a primary-secondary sequence, kind of like a checkerboard. You mine a primary stope, you fill it with that paste, let it harden, and only then do you mine the secondary stope right next to it. It's a brilliant way to make sure you're always working next to solid, stable ground. But before you can even think about mining, you have to get through some massive geological hurdles. And for Havieron, it really boils down to 2 huge fundamental challenges: water and air. Just stop and think about this for a second. That 420-meter layer of cover rock isn't just dry and solid. Nope. It is saturated with water under pressure. So the first critical question for the engineers was, how do you punch a tunnel through all that without the whole thing flooding? Well, the answer means they have to navigate not 1, but 4 separate pressurized aquifers. That main decline has to punch through each of these layers: the unconfined near the surface, then the upper, middle, and lower confined aquifers, and each one has its own geology and its own water pressure. It's an incredibly complex puzzle they have to solve on the way down. So that's water. The second challenge is just as basic: life support. Once you're deep underground, you need a constant, massive supply of fresh, breathable air. And not just for the hundreds of miners, but for the huge fleet of giant diesel equipment working down there too. Plus, you've got to find a way to get all those exhaust fumes out. So how do you possibly create these giant ventilation shafts through that unstable, waterlogged ground? The solution is this absolutely incredible piece of tech: blind bore shaft drilling. See, unlike traditional methods, this rig drills wide shafts straight down from the surface, and it doesn't need anyone at the bottom to guide it. It's amazing. And this chart really explains why it was the only real choice for Havieron. Traditional raise boring, that's where you drill up, requires you to already be underground, which is just way too risky in this weak, wet ground. But blind boring, it's perfect. It provides stability the whole way as it drills down through those tough layers, making it so much safer and more reliable. So the master plan is to use this technology to create the lungs of the mine. It's all about drilling 4 new 5-meter-wide shafts 450 meters deep. 2 of them will act as intakes, pumping fresh air in, and the other 2 will be exhausts, pulling all the bad air out. It's a powerful, redundant system designed to keep the air in that mine safe for decades to come. Okay, so we've got the resource and we've got the engineering plan. So let's get to the final section and see how this all comes together. What's the timeline, what's the cost, and what's the payoff to turn this blueprint into a real working mine? Well, first things first, you can't just start digging. As this timeline shows, there's a really complex multi-year approvals process. The project has to pass some very rigorous environmental standards at both the state and federal levels. It's a process that involves public comments and super detailed assessments before they can get the final green light. So here's how the path forward looks. The target is to get those main environmental approvals sometime in fiscal year 2026. After that, they can make what's called a final investment decision to go ahead. And from that point, it's a race, about 2.5 years to produce the very first gold, and then another 3 years after that to ramp up to full, steady production. And what's the price tag to make all that happen? Just over 1 billion Australian dollars. Yeah, that's the estimated capital cost before the mine even produces a single ounce of gold. It's just an enormous investment that covers everything you can imagine. Now, what I find really smart about this number is the foresight involved. Baked into that billion-dollar budget is a contingency of $105 million. It's basically a rainy day fund. It's just smart risk management. Because on a project this complex, you have to plan for the unexpected. You build in a financial buffer to handle whatever challenges pop up. So, we've covered this massive 17-year plan, but I want to leave you with this direct quote from the study. It says that an additional 3.1 million ounces of gold and 130,000 tons of copper have already been found, but they're not included in the current plan. The treasure chest is even bigger than we thought. Which, of course, leads us to the final question. The current plan is already one of the most ambitious mining projects in the world, but with a known resource of another 3.1 million ounces of gold just sitting there, waiting. You have to wonder, is this 17-year plan just the opening act for Havieron?